Hi everyone, and welcome to ODTUG's online education series. Today's presentation is Apex World on Air, What Would You Wish For in Apex 6? It will be presented by Dan McGann and Joel Coleman of Oracle Corporation, Jürgen Schuster of IT Beratong, Martin D'Souza of Insum Solutions, and Scott Spendolini of Sumner Technologies. Today's presentation will be recorded and available for viewing on the ODTUG website. Please feel free to put your questions in the questions box at any time during the presentation. They will be addressed at the appropriate time. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you all for being here today.
Hello.
Hi guys, we are back. Our 10th Apex World on Air show anniversary. This time, what do you wish for Apex 6? It's probably going to be Apex 19, but I guess nobody would have known what Apex 19 should be, but we would say the next major release. But first, let me give you some updates, general updates of Apex World. So we have the Member of the Year, Marco Gorecki. Great job, well deserved. Member of the month December is the whole Apex development team. They accomplished to get 5.2 early adopter out before Christmas, and I don't think we know how much trouble it would be in such a big company like Oracle to put something out on such a short notice. In January, we have Helen Robertson. She is posting a lot of blogs just for beginners, which is really valuable because I think we have maximum 5% content which is tagged as a beginner news. So we're always grateful for beginner blogs and informations. Then the current podcast is from Carsten. He is talking about REST in general and all the new REST features in 5.2, and he explaining it in detail and very well. So if you want to know about REST or the REST features in 5.2, listen to the podcast. He's explaining everything. Then we have a new conference in Europe. Again, an Apex-only conference, 2 days in Spain, a week before Kscope. It's a low-cost conference, $100, 2 days, 30 tracks, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a week before Kscope, and I guess they will get a lot of abstracts which will be held on Kscope. The air shows will always be recorded and available on the Apex World YouTube channel. So what is my wish list for Apex 6? So let me start a little bit from the beginning.
Get ready, Joel, here it comes.
Is that again? So I think we have a very special, unprecedented situation here in the Apex community. So we have a very special relationship between the developers and the users or us, the developers, so we know each other very well. I would rather say we are kind of a family. But the problem is it creates something like, I would say it's an inner circle of experts. So we're just talking to each other, and it's very hard for regular developers and beginners to get into this circle. Actually, they don't know that this is even existing. So I was at a customer's a couple of weeks ago. I was in the kitchen and I talked to a guy and asked him, hey, where are you coming from? Yeah, I'm coming from Uruguay. And what do you do? What do you do here? What project? He said, yeah, I'm doing an Apex project. Oh, interesting. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He didn't know anything about community. And he's sitting practically 5 meters away from me.
How far is 5 meters for us in America?
Say that again?
How far is 5 meters in feet for those in America? That to me seems pretty far, but it might be.
You can basically shout to him. You can shout to him.
Nice.
And I experienced a lot when I come to customers. There are Apex developers there, but they're having a book on their table and they don't know about community, Twitter. With Apex World, it's getting a little bit better, but in general, we have a lot of, I would say, regular developers who are not involved in the community and all the new features and all that stuff, and not talking, let alone all the beginners that's starting with the tool. So my wish is, when we started with Apex, it was very simple. There was not that many options, and what was generated was simply perfect. You wouldn't like to change a lot, if anything. But now we have Apex 5, the universal theme, and responsive web design, a lot of functionality, and it's becoming more and more complex. And I can handle it, but for the beginners and the regular developers, it's becoming more and more complicated. So I would wish, not for me, but in general, I would wish for the next version to go back to the old simplicity. And therefore, I don't want to have new features. So I would like to have a consolidation version for Apex 6 and make the old ones, the old features perfect. Let me show you some examples. So the checkbox, right? It's easy to fix with a little CSS, but people are creating plugins for that to make it perfect. And this should working right out of the box. It should be right out of the box. Another thing, what I always do, 90% of the time, I'm having reports and I'm editing a record and I delete a record. So what I want to have is something like this. So this is now an interactive grid as a report, nothing to edit because 95% of the time I'm using reports, no forms, right? So now I'm using the interactive grid as a report, which is very nice and I love it. But I still have the thing, I want to have a little trash can at the end, want to click on the trash can, and then there should be a modal dialog coming up and saying, do you really want to delete? And yes, and the record should be gone. So what do I do to achieve this? First, I need to create a new column. Then I put the link text with the right icon in it, and I put the ID in it. And then I create a hidden item for that. And then I make a click handler as dynamic action. And I get the corresponding ID out of the attributes, and then I have to do my own modal dialog. Why? Because the regular dialog of Apex, they don't have any heading. They don't have a title, right? And I want to have a title. And they also don't have a hot button. And for me, my design is always the next step has to be the hot color. So you don't have to think, you don't have to see, to read what is on the button or seeing at the icon, looking at the icons. You just see, okay, hot always means this is what you do 99% in the regular workflow. So to achieve that, I have to create my own dialogue. And at the end, I show the success message. It always costs me half an hour to figure this out because I mistyped something. This is something I would wish, and I think for a beginner or a regular developer, it should be very, very easy to have something like you have a trash can, you click on it, you get a little dialogue, and the record is gone without even thinking about hidden items and dynamic action stuff. Another example, the rich display selector and the tabs. So what you see here is our tabs, but actually when the people who are really into that knows, no, tabs don't have a show all option. So what I wanted to have is a rich and display selector functionality, but I want to have the tabs layout. And the integration of rich and display selector and tabs is very confusing for me. So at the end, I have chosen the rich and display selector functionality because it has the show all option, and I can but I don't like the visual UI of the rich and display selector. I like the tab UI. So I talked to Maxime, and he put a lot of CSS on top of it, and now I have a region display selector with a UI of a tab. This is exactly what I want to have, and this is for me pretty confusing. Implemented these two concepts of tabs and region display selector. I would love to have one concept, region display selector, and the UI should be just a user interface setting, right? This is what I would like to. Other small things. So I saw in a blog recently that there is a little space in front of the search bar, and you have to add some JavaScript to fix that. Then another thing I'm fighting with, if you are always using the labels above, required labels above. If you set the required label above, on region level, you get the star on the left side. If you set the required label above, on item level, you get the star on the right side, for whatever reason. You don't get it if you have it on label left assigned, but label right, you have it either in front or on the back, but anyway, it's not centered. And it's very hard to understand why it's different. And what you really want to have is, I want to choose where is this star, left, right. It should be centered, and I should be able to choose the color. This is basic things the regular developer would like to have without going into details and having a lot of CSS, which of course, at the end, you can fix it, right? You can do everything, but this is the fixed version. This is how I would like to have it, and I can achieve it with a little help of Maxime. But this is what it should be right out of the box, right?
You want it
Another
on the
thing,
right, the asterisk?
I want to have it configurable. I want to choose, it should be right, it should be on the left, it should be color blue, it should be color red or yellow. It should be my choice.
Right? Just so you know, the Apex team's watching this. Shakib's going to go verify this right now. It could already be fixed in the next release of Apex. We're on it. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah.
But can I just point out that
okay, let me.
If that is an option,
yeah,
it kind of adds to the complexity you were talking about. Like if everything becomes an option, even something as simple as which side you're setting the asterisks on, that's just yet another option that a new person has to see and learn about and deal with.
Yeah, but this is what you. So the other thing is, this is what you, when you have a regular developer, you're doing forms, you have labels. The label, handling with the labels should be configurable, very easy to do. So, and if you have as a required label, then the icon should be, you should be able to choose the icon which is required, the color, where is it, left, right aligned. This is something basic for forms, I would say. For the regular simple people, right?
Right, fair enough.
Okay, so another thing which is also very confusing to me, if you want to have the labels aligned left, you can do it on the item level, which you would expect. So I'm searching very, very long to see, it cannot be here. Where can I put it on the left side? You have to do it on region level. And so you can always set everything to left aligned and not a single one to left aligned. And so it's the all or nothing thing. And you wouldn't expect it. It's fine if you have it additionally on the region level, if you want to have 20 different items and change that all at once. But it also should be able to, on the item level, to set the label left or right aligned, because this is an attribute of the item. Hard to find. Another thing.
All right, can I?
This is.
I'll time out. Time. We're supposed to have 6 minutes, right?
Yep.
I just want to make sure we have all enough time to put our thoughts in. Questions.
Let me go through this thing quickly. So here, what I see here are all the buttons where I can put my buttons in an interactive grid, but I will never put a button in any of these positions: previous, top, default, above, below. Never. What I really want to have is to put the buttons in here, but I need to have a plugin, and this is something this should also come out right out of the box, that I be able to put the buttons inside an interactive grid region. A select to list. This is the most used plugin, and people don't know that you can multi-select the select list, especially managers. So a select to select list would be really helpful. No pop-up LOVs anymore. So pop-up is gone, right? This is not what you really want to have in a modern UI. So what I create is a nice interactive grid, pop-up LOV. So with a nice report, it costs me an hour to do this every time. But it's worth it because it's very nice. You can search for it. So this is what also should be out of the box. And then my favorite, the bad grid. when you start and having a form, this is the default. When you have 4 items on the same line, and when it's spread all over the place, and this is what looks weird for the customers. And when you make it smaller, then it's very loud, very noisy. So everything is moving, and then the content is cut a little bit before it breaks, right? And my customer is asking me, why is the spread all over the place, and why is it moving? I have enough space. So this is what he really wants to have. And this is what I'm implementing. Very clean, very nothing is moving, and the content always stays the same. And what you see is what you expect. Now we have not enough room, and now it breaks. This should be the default, right? In my opinion. So last thing, no new features. Make it simple. Make the small things perfect again for the regular developer. But if there is a new feature, I would love to have something like web templates, because we have a lot. Apex is good enough for web applications, and also in intranet applications, we often have this starting page, which looks very should be attractive. And here's a perfect example: the new web page from Ask Tom, an Apex application. And I would love to have that. If I would have a wish for a new feature, it would be web templates, that we can have a starting page like this. Okay, this is from my side. So I try to stop my sharing the screen. Who wants to continue?
I'll go. I think I can get us some time back too, because I'll be brief. Jürgen really already touched on sort of the 2 things I was thinking of, one of which is some kind of a super duper LOV that's, searchable, sortable, enterable, multi-select, single select, something that really just handles it all, I think would be great. And I do agree with there being a release that, rather than tackling a lot of big new features, focuses on refining existing features. I think that would be a nice release to see. That's it for me. I have no slides.
I'm slideless too, so I guess I'll go next. Sort of taking what Jürgen said and molding it a little bit. One feature that I think could be helpful, and maybe not to everybody, would be a low-code mode of Apex. And hear me out on this. There's been a lot of traction that I think Apex is getting in the market because the Gartners and the other analyst firms out there are pushing this low-code approach. And you can see that the blueprint, right, the new feature in 5.2 and on apex.oracle.com is sort of a reaction in some sense to this, to say, look at what I can do with the tool without ever touching the keyboard. The problem is, if you want to change any of that stuff, you're right back to the same screens that have been with Apex since day one. So I think there's a little bit of a gap, as you can create a very slick application low code, but now you have to go and manage it with some degree of code. And that degree is really going to depend on the developer behind the keyboard. It would be interesting, and I know this wouldn't be trivial to pull off, but to have another interface, not taking away from the existing one and not stopping the enhancement of the existing one, but a different interface that would allow me to manipulate the top 10 options of all the components on the page. So a report, for instance, if I look at it, I can sort the columns. I could say this column displays or doesn't display, and then maybe position it on the page. All the other features, the CSS class, the icon class, the run validations, all the little nuances that we as Apex developers understand and use, they're simply not shown, and a set of defaults are taken. This way, you could then tell a better story of a true low-code environment, right? Where I built this application, I used the blueprint, I've got a form and a report and another form and another report. Watch how easy it is for me to add a field. Watch how easy for me is it to put a security rule on